Tell us something about yourself in 3-4 sentences, which is not in your lab.
Which is not in my lab. So I was born and brought up in Jamshedpur, and after that I did my engineering from IT Kharagpur. So while doing my engineering, I also interned at Goldman Sachs, investment bank.
Where?
In Bangalore.
What is happening with bank? Something happened with Yes Bank today? What is
Yes, so
wrong?
the stock price has crashed.
But what is wrong with our banking sector?
So an NPA sector and NPA crisis also. NPA crisis is going on, and there was a perception regarding Yes Bank that the share prices would crash because of corporate mismanagement, and I think that perception has triggered this collapse.
A lot of people say that the public sector banks are not doing well, so they should be privatized. If you are finance secretary of the government of India, what will be your view?
I think privatization has helped us a lot in with respect to commodities.
ICICI Bank, Chanda Kuchar is in trouble. Yes Bank is collapsing.
Yes, so while doing privatization, we should always ensure that we have a greater regulation.
How do you ensure privatization?
So RBI is already doing a good job in controlling this vast number of banks that are present.
What regulatory mechanisms do we have for the financial sector? Banking sector.
RBI is the main regulator, and then there are SEBI, which will see the stock prices and capital market allocation of these banks.
Do you think somewhere they need to be strengthened? Can you point out 2 or 3?
Yes, sir. In my view, sir, there should be a single financial regulator, because when two banks merge and they are big banks, so there is a chance that this is hampering the competition. In that respect, the Competition Commission of India comes into picture. But for banks, we already have RBI. So this conflict of regulatory bodies is something which should be avoided.
If you look back in the last couple of years, 5 years, I think the major corporate failures. Can you name some of them?
This is Jet Airways was one.
What happened? What was the core problem there?
So Jet Airways had a huge debt and was not able to give the interest on that debt. And even though
How were they diverting funds?
so they were selling their routes to some other.
Like Jet and any other very recent major failure which brought down the whole sector?
So ILFS crisis.
What happened?
So again, the infrastructure loans that were being handed out, the return on those loans was not coming as.
Where did the system fail? Alright, the management was bad. They were doing all kinds of things. Where did the system fail?
So there was
Main culprits.
the main culprit, I think, is the complexity of our rules and legislations that we are following. So other than that,
Who was supposed to look into the accounts? The management were thieves. Who was supposed to look at the accounts?
the regulators should have to do it.
Regulator was mostly.
It's a chartered accountant.
What is wrong with our auditing system? Whether you take Satyam, they are actually thieves together with the corporate board of directors.
So in that chartered accountancy sector, I realize that it is the company which selects the
Yes.
chartered accountants. And
So, what reform would you like to introduce in accounting auditing?
so it should not be a user-paid model, wherein
And same thing applies to some other sector. Think of something quickly. We will rely on that.
so the ratings which are given.
Prabal, you did your schooling from Rajendra Vidyalaya. Is it named after Dr. Rajendra Prasad? Can you tell us something about Dr. Rajendra Prasad?
So he was a common farmer leader born in Chhapra, which is also my later he went on to lead the struggle in Bihar. So he was associated with Congress party, and he was also among those who, along with Rajkumar Shukla, convinced Bapu Mahatma Gandhi to come to Champaran and start the satyagraha. As a result, he rose in stature and he was offered the post of first president of India. And as president, I think he had a calming effect if and when there were differences coming up between Sri Nehru and Sri Patel.
You use the word Bapu. So, who gave the title of Bapu to our father of nation?
So it was Rabindranath Tagore.
It was Rabindranath Tagore. And then who gave the title Mahatma? It was Netaji who gave the title Bapu. Now, anthropology is your option. Tell me one headhunting tribe of India.
Nagas are known to, but this was in past, now they are not.
Naga is a tribe.
The Naga is an amalgamation of many tribes. So Angami Nagas and Konyak Nagas are some of.
Konyak tribe, it has been in news, not for good reasons. Are you aware about that?
So I am aware of this issue wherein the traditional leader should be a male, but due to our Panchayati Raj system, which mandates that female participation should be there, and the Naga tribes are having a conflict in implementing this rule in their scheduled areas.
Have you heard of SS Konyak? You have heard about NSCN?
Yes.
So, now going back to the internal security issues. You know what is left-wing extremism?
Yes.
Jharkhand is also one of the region of red corridor. Now, what is going wrong in Jharkhand that still, after becoming an independent, not it was earlier part of Bihar, now it is a separate state, but still the problem of the Naxalism still prevails in Jharkhand.
So Naxalism flourishes in poverty, and as long as Jharkhand, the tribes of Jharkhand remain poor and undeveloped, so we will see some people losing their way and joining the Naxalite movement. But I think the government is focused on a multi-pronged approach, which is both security and developmental at the same time. So this will in future definitely bring down this problem.
What does this approach is called? What is that approach? Because your hobby is reading defense news, so you must be aware about the approach that there is any particular name they use.
Samadhan was a.
Now, again related to the defense news, we have a troubled neighborhood, and our borders are also porous. So, is there any recent initiative that the government of India has taken to ensure that the borders do not remain porous?
Yes, sir, along the western border with Pakistan, we had integrated structure. I'm forgetting that one.
It is integrated comprehensive border management.
Border
system.
management.
So they are developed. Now, there was also a news that a foreigner tried to enter an island in Andaman and Nicobar. Do you know which tribes they reside in that region?
Yes, it was the Sentinelese tribe residing on the North Sentinel Island, and the person in question was John Allen Chow, who was an American missionary.
So, do you think tribals are backward?
So it was the old way of thinking them as backward and compared to the other Western civilizations as forward. But the new way of thinking is that they are different, and as a cultural relativism approach prophesizes that we should allow them to pursue their goals and objectives as they wish, while not completely isolating them.
So, who gave this cultural relativism in anthropology?
Given by Franz Boas.
And what is the idea of government of India when they want to deal with the tribal areas and the tribal people of our country?
The government of India is currently following a policy of tribal punch sheet, which is a mixture of the tribal assimilation approach propounded by our nationalist leaders and the isolationist approach propounded by familiarizing.
Yeah, first a personal question. And this may have been asked to many ICS aspirants, IAS aspirants. Did a degree in engineering from a very reputed institution, right? Instead of going to the US and working there in some company, why did you choose to civil service?
Ma'am, I had always wished to remain in India and work among our countrymen. So, and the path to US generally does not come back. So once a person goes there, he will have to stay there. It is mostly because the opportunities in US and India are so different that it becomes very hard to come back.
Now, why did you choose a subject like anthropology, which is not a very popular subject for say like political sciences, history, and economics?
I'm coming from Jharkhand, so I had seen RACE from very close, and I always wished to work for them. So, although anthropology is very vast and it's not just limited to tribals any longer, but there is a focus on tribals, so I selected this.
Last couple of questions on international relations. Okay, now just in a few sentences, tell us what Cold War was all about. Why did it start? Why did it end?
So after World War II, United States and the USSR seem to be the two most powerful nations, and both of them were following a very different ideology. US was proposing capitalism while USSR was communist state. So the clash of ideology and the desire to spread their ideology over the other combative ideology, this led to Cold War, and
It was not designed to control the world. Basically,
Well,
Hitler's desire.
spreading the ideology is a very good way to control the world. When the world believes that this ideology is superior, then they will follow the proponent.
So, what kind of transformation we see after Cold War ended? Why did it end? Why did it have to end?
Ma'am, the United States forced USSR to enter into an arms race with it, and USSR just could not sustain this long race. As a result, it broke apart. And the impact of it on India specifically was that we had to recalibrate our foreign policy because it was heavily tilted towards USSR and we had shunned US for long. Other than that, in the global affairs, US emerged as the sole superpower for the next few decades, and we are seeing a relative shift of that position.
What role is Russia playing
In international politics, and Russia is again trying to show to the world that it is a dependable ally and still a superpower. So in Syria, we are seeing a very determined defense of the regime, Russian intervention, and even with Iran and Venezuela, it was the Russian support that gives some sort of protection against the US threats to those countries.
What about East Europe, Central Asia?
There, ma'am, I think Russia is making a lot of economic partnerships, like the gas pipeline we see with Germany and Europe. So they are trying to engage so much with them economically that the sanctions, if any, by the US would not be as effective.
I think negative there. Cooperation.
I mean, Russia, in East Europe, Ukraine was in that country. Russia intervened, which was something against the global order of not invading another country.
प्रबल, आपका क्या देख के लग रहा है कि आपको आपने एनसीसी भी है आपका, और आपने डिफेंस में काफ़ी इंटरेस्ट है आपको, डिफेंस में ट्राई किया
But defense,
CDS, NDA
So beside just very close to Kharagpur, there is a Air Force base Karaikota. So we used to go there, and we also had one long camp thing, 14 days.
Which certificate do you have?
The certificate I could not get because my attendance was not above the mandatory.
Okay. Getting defense news, your hobby. What changes comes when you listen to state of news related to India's defense achievement and some change in your psychology, your attitude comes?
Yes, I think it gives me a more realistic picture of the current state of India vis-a-vis our neighbors. I find many people around me who are not following defense news as much to be swayed by the breaking news and believe that India is a very strong superpower, which is not the case right now. So it sobers my attitude that a war with Pakistan or China is not a very good option right now.
Actually, you analyze the news or you give your opinion after analyzing your these type of news just in media you are talking about. I'm talking about the actual news related to defense of our country. From where it comes from?
So many retired army generals and Air Force officers are writing articles and blogs expressing their opinion on the
Yes, you are going through the blogs and what is the AGPL? What is AGPL? I'm listening.
AGPL.
The actual ground position line.
Yes, sir. The actual ground position line is our border in Siachen area. So we are requesting the Pakistani side to accept the AGPL so that we can move our troops back and they can also do the same, and it will reduce our casualties on the Siachen glacier. Pakistan is not currently accepting.
Tell me something about urban nationalism.
So urban nationalism is a term given to the group which supports the Naxalite ideas, but not by picking up arms, but by giving it a philosophical and defense in media and a defense through literature, those sort of things. So, but I think it is not an accepted term right now. The government has no clear definition of urban nationalism. It is only a term which is coming up in India.
And what is nationalism?
So Naxalism is the Maoism because it emanated from Naxalbari, so we have given it a term Naxalism. But it is a left-wing ideology that revolution should come by arms and the post-revolution state should be a communist state.
Tribal area administration is a core issue in the constitution, and it was given, I think, statutory and constitutional notice so many times. What do you think that the provisions which are present in our constitution or which were statutory laws provided by our parliament are sufficient to protect the tribals and tribal area in our country? And if they are sufficient, what are the reasons why northeast states, Meghalaya, Tripura, Manipur, Mizoram, are suffering from suspect of violence on the name of protection of the interest of the tribals in those areas?
So I believe there are many provisions given in our constitution for the protection of tribals, and those are necessary and if not sufficient, very close to being sufficient. The problem lies in their implementation.
Tell me 2-3 provisions which are given in our constitution.
So there are 5th and 6th schedule areas. So they give a certain degree of protection and autonomous structure to the tribal administration. Then sir, there is a reservation based on discrimination that should not be done on race and religion. So we have an exception to that scheduled tribes and scheduled castes can be given reservation. Other than that, sir, there is a reservation in parliament and state legislature for tribal bodies. Then sir, we have separate tribal welfare minister in states which have a high tribal population, and this is mandated in the constitution. Then sir, we have the finance commission should look into it that tribal areas get separate funds and the budget for tribal areas is allocated separately. We also have a tribal sub-plan that is completely focused on the tribal area development.
National Scheduled Tribe Conservation is a constitutional body.
Yes.
In which article of Indian Constitution they again this is given the constitutional position
So it is given in Article 338A.
338 in which it was given a separate status because originally it was the circumscribed scheduled class and scheduled tribe, but it was separated in a year.
It was separated around 2000, right? Around exactly.
Prabal, just in the conversation you mentioned that right now war is not a good option. Is war any time a good option?
Yes, the war is a good option in certain contexts and certain options. So, for example, when the 9/11 attacks happened, if the US had not launched a war on Afghanistan, it would have been a very big blow to the US diplomacy. Given their relative strength at that time, I think it was a good option for them to go into that war.
So you are very okay with the idea of assertion of power?
To become a global superpower and stay there, the country needs to assert its powers.
And you foresee India as becoming
Global
so-called superpower someday? Okay, keeping this context in mind, how do you defend the philosophy of Gandhi and Buddha?
So Gandhi and Buddha both stood for non-violence, but in certain contexts they have also said that when violence is forced upon you, then remaining non-violent will not deter your the aggressor. So non-violent approaches should never be our first option, and we should never assert ourselves in that.
Just how you said that.
That's it. In the specific case of 9/11, violence was forced upon the United States.
It was a fallout of their earlier policies.
So
US has been meddling with the world affairs for a long time.
yes.
So ultimately they pay for what they have sown.
But they viewed it as an attack on them, so they had to reply.
George Bush wanted a second term.
So it's like the surgical strikes we did after the Pulwama attacks.
Okay, fine. You belong to Jharkhand. How do you defend the formation of small states? We have those bifurcated.
So I remember my parents complaining that the capital being too far, it was too cumbersome to them to go for any work that can be done only in the capital. So I believe the same situation is for Uttar Pradesh, that the capital will be very far from the border districts. So in that case, there should be a second capital, or if not, then the state should be separated.
You are very okay with the idea of Telangana or
Coming up as a separate state.
Andhra Pradesh rather coming up with 4 capitals.
So that I think is going too far in that direction. But
Okay. There is something called as resource curves in economics. Okay. Do you think our eastern states are suffering from this resource curves?
this is Jharkhand specifically suffers from this resource curse. So what happens there is because of the availability of a lot of raw materials. Many big corporations have come up there which only hire high skilled laborers and which take up huge amount of land. So the people actually staying there, they do not get any share in this development that is happening, and their way of life is hampered by this investment. So it becomes a resource curse for them that the resource coming out of the land which had sustained them is now threatening their lifestyle.
Have you heard about the blue migrants? Can you please explain the entire situation and how the government has gone about it?
So blue migrants came from Bangladesh, from the Chittagong hill area, and they stayed in Mizoram. But the Mizo tribes and the blue tribes again had conflict among them. So the government has now resettled them in Tripura.
The blue came from Bangladesh.
From the Chittagong area.
Okay. So now the government has decided to let them stay in. Do you think this movement of a specific tribe or people will be accepted by the society or the people over there if it is imposed from the government?
So it should never be imposed. So the state government should always be taken into confidence whenever the sector is going for any such decision. As the state government has representatives of that area, so they will have a better picture of what is the acceptability of this step. So in this case, I believe the people of Tripura are not that much agitated against the blue migrants as the people of Mizoram were.
Keeping our history in mind, as happened earlier also, and the current dispensation, with a majority party in power at the center and at the state, how do you think it is affecting our federalism?
So, majority party system in center and state is not the actual reason which is affecting. It is, I think, the lack of inner party democracy, which binds the state leadership to follow the commands of national leadership, and this is hampering our federalism. The MPs and MLAs should have an independent voice, and the whip system should have to be looked into it again, because when a party issues whip, and the same is the case in the central leadership issues directions to the state leadership. So, along with it, the combination of a same party structure in both center and state, then the state are having a very reduced share in voicing out their opposition to any policy.
Who's the Chief Minister of Jharkhand right now?
Mr.
Sorry. His father, Mr. Shibu Soren, it has been alleged that he was a hallmark. So how do you see the nexus of a politician becoming a people's representative and this whole concept of Bahubali in Indian politics?
The criminal politician nexus is a reality, not just in Jharkhand but in many other states. So we have taken up a few very good steps that convicted people would not be able to run for election and they would lose their seats. So I think as long as it is alleged but not proven, it should be allowed to remain in politics. But the cases against these politicians should be fast-tracked because they have a greater impact in the policy making than any other individual. So if a normal other person is alleged to be a criminal, it may not have that big an impact as much as if a chief ministerial candidate is alleged to have been a murderer or a criminal. So we should have a separate fast-track courts for trying out politicians.
One last question. You've been watching cricket. How do you think cricket has been an enabler for us as a country?
So cricket has, in times of having disturbance with Pakistan in the past, it has been a point where we have bonded together and played friendly matches. Then compared to the white man's burden theory, whenever we defeat the English team or other white fields. So it gives a boost in confidence of every Indian that we are as good as them in any sector. It has also helped many cricketers from the rural background to come up and play big matches in IPL along as good as any other foreign player. So it has, and like Dhoni, player from Jharkhand playing from Chennai, so it has led to greater regional unity among India also.
Thank you. Sir.
Good. I will just call you.